Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Ricky. So, Ricky, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
My name is Ricky Ford. I'm the president and founder of Gentle Ben Spirits in Persedo. Live in Texas, just south of Houston, and we're in the business of producing distilled spirits for others, as well as our own brand called Gentle Ben.
Awesome. So how did you get the idea to start this company?
Oh man, it goes way back. When I first started, it was really just a continuation of what my father had started years ago, which was he had a simple aeration device that would, he would pull air through an alcohol or a distilled spirit under vacuum, and while doing that, he was basically creating a vacuum in the headspace. And so when you pull air through there, it would draw out some trace volatile organic compounds would come out. So he was removing things like methanols and butanols and propanols and aldehydes and things like that under this vacuum stripping process. And it just got me intrigued. I thought, there's got to be a way to optimize something like this and come up with a process that could remove these trace contaminants, which are directly tied to taste and aroma of a distilled spirit. And so that sent me up to Texas A&M, where I had gone to school. And so I went to the College of Chemistry, and I took my father's, which I've got it right here. I took my father's contraption. This was his little device, and took this up there to see if they could help me analyze before and after what was coming off of the distilled spirit. And they in turn sent me back to Houston, where I met a guy by the name of Dr. Mosier. And Dr. Mosier was a PhD chemist. He was on the acceptance board at the College of Chemistry there. He was a Space Science Award winner out at NASA, co-author of over 50 plus patents. And I took this to him and I said, is there any way you can identify what's coming out of this air stripping process that my dad had? And so he did. And we ran some alcohol, and he did a gas chromatography and mass spec analysis on it. And it came back as, hey, you're removing some of these offensive compounds in a distilled spirit. And yes, it's making it smoother, but, or I should say less offensive, just minus the heavy burn, but you're losing proof, and you lost 10% of the ethanol, which is the good stuff. So it just got me to thinking, hey man, we could optimize a process. And so I told him, I said, can you help me figure out how to let the bad stuff go and keep the good? And he said, yeah. So that was in 2000, and in 2001 my father passed away, so I just put it all on the back burner and didn't do anything with it. Fast forward to 2007, and Dr. Mosier called me up and said, any chance you want to finish that project that your father and you had brought to me and 7 years ago? And I said, absolutely. And so I went and found an office space, gutted it, built a lab, hired Dr. Mosier, another gentleman, put him in the lab, and then we brought in a lady to kind of coordinate the activities. And I had a day job. My day job was in the oil and gas valve business, and I was traveling all over the world. And so we started this in 2007, and the whole goal of the project was to see if we could figure out a way to remove those trace contaminants that I was talking about without affecting proof, without affecting ethanol. And that's a trick, because when you're making a vodka, for example, you start with a grain neutral alcohol. And at that time, other distillers were buying grain neutral spirit at 190 proof. And before cutting it with water down to 80 proof to make a vodka, they would further distill it, and some would activate some would filter with activated carbon. There was all sorts of little tricks of the trade, if you will, to clean it up. But there was a loss associated with that. So the longer I distilled, the cleaner I got it, but the less I ended up with at the end. So yes, you could get clean, but it was a cost of alcohol loss and energy consumption, et cetera. So we thought, wow, if we could remove those impurities without the ethanol loss and use less energy, we might have something. And that's exactly what we did. We perfected a process where we could, number one, get cleaner than what they were getting using distillation and filtration. We ended up with a process that used 90% less energy in the process of purification, and we have zero alcohol losses in the process, as opposed to 20+% that some of these distillers were experiencing. So it took us from 07 to 15 to get a patent, optimize the system and get a patent. And we ended up with something totally different than what my father had started out with. So again, his was a simple aeration. Ours ended up being ultrasound that we used to fracture hydrogen bonding. And then we use nitrogen, CO2, ultrasound, temperature controls, vacuum controls, etc. And we control bubble size and stir rates. And so we landed on this really slick polishing step, or finishing step, as we like to call it. And we later learned how to tune and tweak the process so that we could apply it to a broad class of spirits. And so now we can apply this technology, or this finishing step, to anything from vodkas, tequila, rum, gin, bourbons, scotch, liqueurs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a long-winded version of how we got started and what our goal was when we first started out. But now we've launched the technology, and we license the technology, and then we also use it to create our own spirit called Gentle Ben, who I named after Dr. Ben Mosier, who was the gentleman that helped me do all this work over the course of 8 years or so, whatever it was, in the lab. He passed away the year we were going to launch, and this was our way of paying homage to the man.
Awesome. So what made it seem for you like it was the right time? Because you mentioned that you work in the oil and gas industry, a very lucrative career, but to leave that to start your own company is a big risk. What made you seem like, what made you think that was like the right move to make at that time?
Well, I should probably preface it by saying I was very fortunate to have the financial wherewithal to support a research program. So, it wasn't that, I just decided and started, with nothing. It was, I was a sales guy, and I went, and pounded the streets and sold and made commissions, and every chance I got, I stuck some of that money back. And it allowed me to, to take that next step in what I thought could be a revolutionary technology development opportunity. And, it took a lot of money to do that. But I was fortunate enough to save up and decide to roll the dice, with my commissions that I had saved up. So it seemed like the right time. Distilled spirits, just seemed like a really cool, fun industry to be a part of. I knew that the industry had not seen innovation in quite some time. They've been doing it the same way every time. And I thought, wow, if we could just kind of bring, some really cool, innovative technology to the industry, that could be a fun project to work on. I did not think it would take this long to get it going. I thought maybe 3 or 4 years in the lab of research and development and testing and optimizing and all the things you got to do, turned into 07 to 16, late 15, early 16. So took a long time, and there were plenty of times I wanted to call time out and say, hey, I can't go any longer. But because when you're doing a research and development program, it's expensive, and you've got rent, you've got salaries, you've got all these things that cost a lot of money, and I didn't have super deep pockets, so I'm trying to do this as I go along. And it was tough. I worked my day job. I went out and worked in the valve business all the way through the time we got our patent. So, I did not leave until I knew I had a technology created that had a chance at being something. I didn't leave the job. I worked my day job, did this at night. So
Makes sense. So in terms of where it's being sold now, is it mostly in liquor stores, or is there an avenue of D2C like wholesales? Like, where are you getting the channels of selling these products?
So in Texas, I'm not sure if you're familiar. If you're
I'm in
familiar,
Dallas. Like, I'm in Dallas, so
you're in Dallas. Okay, so we have a 3-tier system here in Texas. So as a producer, I sell to a distributor. Our distributor happens to be Republic or RNDC. Then from there, it goes to the liquor stores, and then the liquor stores, either the properly licensed liquor stores will sell it out to restaurants, bars, hotels, and golf courses or whatever, and then retail liquor stores will sell it out to Joe Q Public. We provide our product to RNDC, and RNDC spreads it out across the state of Texas. Right now, we're available in. We just launched, so we're pretty new. We're in 200 plus liquor stores, and we're probably 200 plus restaurants, hotels, golf courses, etc.
you're only in Texas right now.
Yeah, and up until about a month ago, we were only in the Houston area. So we just made it to Dallas, 30 days ago.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
made it to Austin, just made it to San Antonio and other spots around the state. Only, I say a month or two ago. I can't remember exactly when we signed up with RNDC, but when we did, then we just took the next step and took it to the major markets.
Awesome. So what kind of reception are you getting from people? Like, do you go out to different places and do like, samples and things like that? Like, what kind of reception are people giving you with your products?
I think everybody in this industry wants to believe that their product is the best. And, if you don't like it, man, if something must be wrong with you. But I got to tell you, the reception we get is unbelievable. It's unbelievable because of the technology that we use to finish the spirit. So for someone as young as we are to experience the growth that we've experienced over the last 2 years, I know a lot of people that's been in this business for much longer than I have. And we have passed many of those people up in terms of case sales. We're in some major venues. We're in some great spots around the Houston area. Places like the original Carrabba's on Kirby, one of my favorite restaurants. True Lux is another one of my go-to restaurants. We're in True Lux. We're in the Carrabba's Originals. The Marriotts. We're in multiple Marriott locations. We're in a lot of great spots in the city. We also were fortunate enough to be at Minute Maid Park here in Houston. So at Minute Maid, if you're out in Crawford Box, we have a beautiful bar set up there called the Gentle Ben Bar, and it's right there in next to St. Arnold's and the Crawford Box area, section 105 and 106. So that's given us a tremendous amount of exposure. We opened up in the Toyota Center as well. We've just made a tremendous amount of progress in terms of just getting the brand out there and the acceptance. Once obviously, once you do that, you have to be well received by by the folks, and that's what we're experiencing now. The growth has just been phenomenal.
It's awesome. So what's it like for you? I mean, I'm sure it's pretty cool. If you go to a Houston Astros game and you see your product there, I think, obviously the Astros are huge. They've been very good over the years. So what is that, feeling like for you?
Yeah, it's really cool. They had me throw out the first pitch in May, I think is when it was, and walking out there on the field and saying my prayers before I get out there so I don't dunk it in the dirt. Uh, but, but getting out there and participating for something like, I mean, it's just so cool, because you've been in the stands before and you're looking down, you're like, wow, it's a beautiful field. When you're standing on it, it's gorgeous. It's like there's not a blade of grass out of place. And it was a really, really cool experience for me. So, you know, getting the word out there, and then, I mean, it's very humbling. It really is. Yeah,
Awesome.
very.
So what would you say is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started this company?
Ah, yeah. I wish that if I could rewind. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of really good people around me here, and I probably would have brought on a consultant that had been there and done it and knew where the potholes in the road are. If you sometimes you just want to start this business and you're thinking, wow, I can get in the liquor business, and this is going to be great, and da 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 da. And all of a sudden you find yourself in the business, but there's a lot of obstacles in the way. And oh, I didn't know that. And oh, I wish I would have known that. If I could rewind, hey, and by the way, I've got one on call right now. I've got a consultant I can call that knows this industry like the back of his hand, and he's taken brands from concept to exit. So he's a valuable resource. I wish I'd have met him about five years ago. I'd have probably saved some money. So I would say, yeah, that would really be the only thing I could think of is bringing in expertise a little sooner. I would have done that.
Makes sense. So if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you expect things to go for General Ben?
Well, we're right now expanding out throughout the state. I've got a very aggressive growth plan, growth strategy, a plan that was put together with the help of this industry consultant. You know, where I want to be in 5 years is 50,000 cases. That's where I want to be. That's my goal. It's very aggressive, and I get that, but it can be done. And I will not change my mind on where I want to be. So next year, I have a very aggressive goal as well. And, we're going to be throughout the state of Texas. We're going to be gaining a lot of traction throughout the state. We're going to eke our way over into Louisiana. And yeah, I think just further brand awareness is really my focus. I mean, we call it spreading the gospel around here. I mean, it's like, I want to spread the word about Gentle Ben and the spirits that we create, because we create some of the finest spirits that you'll ever put on your palate. And I firmly believe that. And, it's just about spreading that word.
Awesome. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your website or best ways to get in contact with you?
Yeah, my email address is probably the best way to get in touch with me, which is rford@persedo.com. That's Persedo. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. And then we could, follow that up with a phone call.
Awesome. Well, Ricky, thank you so much for your time. We're rooting for you. Hopefully, you guys keep growing and growing, not just in Texas, but all across the country.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. All
You
right.
bet, man.
Bye.
See you, bud.